Welcome, welcome to everyone who's been able to join us. I see a few folks are hopping on. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Very excited to have you either joining us live or joining us on demand wherever you are in the world. I think we are okay to go ahead and get started, and I want to respect everyone's time. So let's dive in. And to dive in, I want to ask you guys a question. Do you know what the top 10 most successful businesses in the world all have in common? You don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to answer. Just think about it. Do you know what they all have in common? It's not a strong business model, although that helps, right? It's not great software or services or even the best commercials or advertising that's out there. They all over-index on the same one thing: storytelling. Not marketing dollars, but storytelling. You see, I believe that most marketing is actually a waste of money. Oh, don't tell a marketer that. But I've been working with brands for more than 17 years, and I've seen firsthand that most sales decks, pitch decks, brochures, booths that we have at conferences that we spend so much time and energy and resources on completely fall flat. And that's because we've been taught, or our natural instinct is to want to quickly say all the things that we want people to know about us or our company and our business, right? Just get it all out there so that they know. But what happens when we develop a business plan or a pitch deck or a piece of marketing that doesn't immediately drive revenue? We panic. We look to hire someone new, or we want to add more money to the paid advertising that's out there, or we create a new post or some new promotion and we put it out there. And we get so desperate to see that return on investment, so we spread our resources even thinner. But what if we could get it right the first time? What if we had all of the ingredients for the perfect recipe from the beginning? I believe that we do, but it requires that we undo this thinking that we can quickly fix the issue of lagging sales and unresponsive leads with a bigger and a louder billboard. You know that you have a great product or service or nonprofit or whatever it is that you are passionate about doing. But unfortunately, the time and the money that you invest into your branding and your website and your marketing aren't actually helping you reach your goals. And this might make you question your people or your branding or even your entire business model, or heck, some days even yourself, right? There's a good chance, though, that none of those things, it's what's actually holding you back. Unclear messaging that drives your marketing are likely what's keeping you from reaching your potential. So today, that's what I'm going to talk about with you. I'm going to share with you 3 pitfalls that I see entrepreneurs and business leaders make, the value of building a foundation of why, and an approach to rethinking your marketing that allows you to develop clear messages that grows your brand and contributes to your bottom line. And the themes and ideas that I'm going to share with you are a blend of my background in studying human psychology and understanding how systems and people work together. I've seen marketing and sales and rhetoric at play in different environments and scenarios. I've seen psychology work, and I've seen and studied how humans interact with information in those different systems, interlaced, interwoven into all of those experiences is storytelling. How well someone connects with information directly relates to how well they will remember that information and implement that information and follow up with that information. People don't buy things because you tell them to and then talk about how awesome you are. People buy things because they heard words that made them want to, words that inspired them to take action. And that's what I want to help you do. I want you to have a greater impact with the messages that you're trying to communicate to investors and customers and internal team members. I want you to become a top 10 most successful company in the world. And today I'm going to help guide you how to get there. And that's going to be through storytelling. Why storytelling? Because it's arguably the most powerful form of communication that we have to work with. That's why it's the communication tool that's transcended time. You know, whether you're selling or interviewing or pitching, a story is something people cannot refuse. Paul Zak, he's a researcher, and he found that stories cause the brain to produce oxytocin, which is a chemical related to feelings of empathy and desire to cooperate. And in layman's terms, stories get people to open up to our ideas. They stimulate our senses and they get us to go from being passive listeners to active experiencers. When it comes to our brain, there's little distinction between story and experience. They both make us feel something and get us involved psychologically, emotionally, and intellectually. Nancy Duarte gave a TED Talk several years ago and said that stories make our palms sweat and our hearts race and our eyes dilate. Now, doesn't that sound like something that you want your customers and investors and team members to experience when engaging with your brand? People don't buy products because you tell them to. They buy products because you move them to. But before we can truly understand storytelling and how to do it well, we have to understand what's holding us back in our current approach. And there's several pitfalls that are keeping us from creating decks and content that are working for us and connecting with our audience. But I'm going to boil it down to 3 things for the sake of conversation today, because we only have about a half hour. And the first pitfall that we make is starting with and focusing too much on the numbers. And I love the way that Donald Miller talks about this in his story brand framework. He talks about how people don't buy the best products and services. They buy the ones that are communicated the clearest and that they can understand the fastest. And Miller says that our brains are trying to do 2 things at any given time: survive and thrive and conserve calories. It's innate to our very being. We can't help it. We are programmed to survive and thrive. So if what we are consuming doesn't contribute to that, our brains shut off. And if we, as entrepreneurs and founders and female leaders, don't speak to this and don't relate our offering or our business to that primal need, then our target customer or that client isn't going to hear a dang word that you have to say. We're also wired to conserve calories as sort of a self-preservation mechanism. And Donald Miller reminds us that if our brain says, whoa, this is a lot to process, then it turns off. The brain literally says, I don't need this information. And our pitfall as humans is that we are tempted to tell everything with perfect accuracy. And Dan and Chip Heath actually call us out on this in their book, Made to Stick. They say that we do this. We try to give perfect accuracy right up front instead of giving just enough information to be useful, and then a little more at a time. We also know there's a phenomenon that occurs called the curse of knowledge. And usually if I'm in person on stage, I'll ask the question to a couple of team members, what do you do as a business? What is your product? And usually I will get a very technical answer. We have the fastest automation, for example. And this concept of the curse of knowledge comes to us, we'll talk about it here, but it comes to us from a 1989 Journal of Political Economy article by two economists. And it's a concept that Dan and Chip Heath build on in their book and kind of made popular and made to stick. And it says that this cursive knowledge is a cognitive bias that occurs when an individual who's communicating with other people, other individuals, assume that that other person has the same background knowledge to understand what you're actually saying, what they're actually saying. And the reality is that you have a lot of knowledge and know too much about your product or service. Go you, pat yourself on the back for that one. You deserve it. But you project that knowledge to your customers, thinking that they know more than they do. So this means you're communicating to your customers at a highly technical level and not at a simplified level that they can understand. And we just talked about survive and thrive and conserving calories, right? What do you think happens if we can't understand your technical product? We shut down. And I see this every day from founders and business leaders building pitch decks for investors and sales trainings or marketing materials for their customers or partners. We want to talk about how beautiful our baby is in a highly technical way. But the fact that we're so excited to tell the world is challenging. It creates an obstacle for us because they don't even hear what's wonderful about us if they shut off. They buy services, people buy services that are communicated the clearest, they can understand the fastest. Simplicity, Dan and Chip Heath say, is all about finding the core of an idea. It's not about dumbing it down. It's about focusing on the core of what you need to communicate, stripping down your message to its most critical essence. And this means that we have to weed out all that extra language and the unnecessary elements, weeding out the ideas that are not critical to the story that we're telling, even though they might be interesting and have a little bit of importance. The last pitfall that I see happen almost always is that we make ourselves the center of the story. We make ourselves the hero, and without our product or service, they can't survive, right? We're here to save the day. And if you're asking, well, Sierra, didn't you just say that we have to talk about how our product helps our customers survive and thrive? I did. But there's a difference between us being the hero, rescuing our client in their moment of despair, and being a tool in their journey to success. Allow me to illustrate this with a relatable topic we probably have all experienced: dating. Ooh. Let's pretend that you've connected with a potential partner. Maybe you've used a dating app or were introduced through a mutual connection, or maybe you happen to meet randomly online or at the grocery. Okay, it's your meet cute. Whatever the case may be, you've set a time to meet, have your first date, and you're all excited. So the date comes, maybe you've read a few things about them, heard a few great things. You're excited to learn more about who they are and whether they're a good match for you. So you've showered, hopefully, you're looking fresh, right? You've done yourself up, and you arrive. And as you're enjoying your dinner and you're asking questions, you start to notice that every answer they give, they're talking about how they are the hero of the story. You ask where they went to school. They respond by pointing to their captain of the team if they're talking about their high school, or maybe they were an athlete in college. Maybe they're asking you questions about yourself, but then they're constantly turning the focus back to them. Okay, in this scenario, most of us would be really turned off and feeling like we're not part of the conversation or being listened to. And the other person comes off a little bit arrogant, let's be honest. And frankly, it turns us off, right? Most likely, we probably are not going to give them another chance at a date in most cases. The same expectation can be true of your business when customers are engaging with you. As an entrepreneur and a business leader, it is natural for us to want our audience to think that we are awesome and to know everything that there is to know about us. We're eager to tell that story and have them buy into it. But when we focus the story on us as a business, it becomes really difficult to relate to and be part of. Our customers want to feel empowered. They want to be the hero of their story. And if we are competing for that lead role, they're going to turn the other way. So if we can recognize these pitfalls, focusing on the numbers, presenting complex information, and being the hero of the story, then there's an opportunity for us to reshape the narrative so that there is an understandable and a simplified message that connects directly to what matters most to our customer. And that is storytelling. That's what it's all about. How do we do that? How do we undo years of training and instinct that tells us that we just need to tell others what makes us special? And I would say that it starts with our why. So let me ask, what's your why? If I were to ask you, what is your why for your business? What would you say? A lot of times when I ask this question, again, I hear it's to sell automation tools. It's to make $4.5 billion. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't get me excited. $4.5 billion, let's be honest, would be amazing, but it doesn't get me out of bed in the morning at the end of the day. Our why is central to being able to communicate our story. It's our bane of existence. And there are a lot of frameworks out there that speak to this one way or another, right? We have Donald Miller, I mentioned him a moment ago, and he discusses the importance of a mission and being able to clearly define that mission before we can begin leading our teams and determining our products and even building our brand story. Dan and Chip Heath, in their book Made to Stick, they call it finding your core, your central message. And Simon Sinek, he has his golden circle framework, and he made that, popular several years ago. We have Start With Why. He has his 2016 talk at a conference. We're all familiar with the golden circle. All of these frameworks narrow in on a fundamental concept, which is that people don't simply buy the best products or the shiniest objects. They buy products that connect to who they are and tap into their identity, and further activate on that identity and create a call to action around that identity. In Simon Sinek's Golden Circle lecture, he talks about how the most successful companies all start with why. Apple, for example, isn't just a computer company that makes computers, right? If they were, Microsoft would have won the war a long time ago. Apple understood that they needed to be more than that. They were a brand of the people who were challenging the status quo. And that is what brought people in the door. That's the message they connected to. We sell computers. We have the best automation. That's your how and your what. That's not your why. And in the case of Apple, their why is all about challenging that status quo, thinking different. And that foundational mission is the filter through which all of the decisions are made. It's the front and center message of their marketing, and it's what we connect to. And by the way, it didn't start that way. If you're unfamiliar with the history, it wasn't until Steve Jobs actually left Apple, worked at Pixar, and better understood storytelling, that he then came back to help craft that perspective and story of Apple. And that's when things began to take off. And for those who may not know, he's actually really well known for being a great storyteller. Love him or hate him, he's known for being a great storyteller. He's known for his speeches. He's known for infusing storytelling into literally every aspect of brand development and product development. And that is why Apple is so successful today. So without first defining our reason for being and what makes us tick, we cannot effectively communicate. We can't build our story and marketing and effectively lead our teams toward meeting the goals of the bottom line if we don't define that why first. It's that North Star. So we have talked about storytelling and the importance of it. We've talked about a foundation of that story starting with your why. But how do we actually go about creating this? And when does it come into play? Our story, our why I mentioned, is present everywhere. And this means our sales teams, our marketing teams, our product developers, investor meetings. It's in the way that we create connection among our teams and with our customers and investors. And when we successfully tell that story from the inside out, we can achieve that great success that we see in those top, most successful companies in the world. But right now you might be feeling stuck. We are stuck. We're stuck in the way that we've been approaching our marketing. We are stuck in the processes and dynamics within the team that has gotten us this far. And whether you're an established company going strong for 15 years or a startup in the space just gaining traction, it's all the same scenario. We're stuck in the day-to-day of what's gotten us this far, and we're setting into complacency and comfort. So how do we step out of that and propel our teams and our companies into great success? Because there's a lot to storytelling. There are people with entire degrees who have perfected this art, but it really comes down, I believe, to 3 key elements. And the first is defining your central idea. Simon Sinek calls this our why. Donald Miller says it's defining your mission. Dan and Chip Heath say it's defined our core. Whatever you call it, it's specific and it serves as a guiding principle through all that you do. Your team needs to know where you're going, and your customer needs to know where you can take them. Your story won't have a point if you're not taking the audience anywhere in that story. Now, defining your mission statement and your why and your central idea doesn't just happen overnight. It's not something you can just write, and it's not just a description of what your product does or what it is. It's about articulating what you are helping the audience overcome. It speaks to a greater goal that we are working toward supporting. And we aren't selling, software or services that help people automate their process. We're selling a peace of mind that creates a better future. So define that future, define your mission, and put words to your why. Deep dive on the problem that you're solving is number 2. I teach a course at Columbia University on entrepreneurship, and every semester, we go through an exercise of building a business idea. And in one of the modules, we deep dive on understanding the stakeholders and the beneficiaries and the problem that we're really trying to solve. And throughout the course of this semester, I really have them work through a couple of different frameworks for understanding the problem from different lenses. And that's because if we don't understand the problem that we're actually solving for, we won't be able to speak to it. If we skip this critical step, nothing else matters. And the mistake that I see often is that we pull out a note card or a sticky note and we write down slow process or lack of data security as the problem that we're solving for, and we stick it on a whiteboard and we call it a day with design thinking. But that is not the problem that we are solving for. That's just the surface. Donald Miller challenges us to think further. And he says we actually have 3 problems that we are solving for at any given time. There's the external problem, and that is usually what we think of. So the slow process or lack of data security. But we also have internal problems, and that taps into how our customer or audience actually feels. So am I competent enough to do this? Do I have what it takes? So what is that customer thinking? And then we have the philosophical problems that we're solving for. So what's right or wrong? Should everyone have free access to data security, for example? Digging deeper to articulate the problem that you're solving for at each level helps you craft a story that directly connects to their survive and thrive filter. The last thing here, as you craft your story, remember that you are not the hero. Your company is also not the hero. At the end of the day, you are not saving the day. You are a tool. You're a guide. You're there to help out the hero as they save the day. We're simply here to help them avoid failure and pain along the way. The more we elevate them, their wins, their successes, by demonstrating empathy for and understanding of the problem, the more they're going to lean into our story, because they're going to say, hey, they get me. They understand what I'm dealing with here. So think of yourself more as a PETA, not as a Katniss. Now, we've only had about 30 minutes or so today to really cover a topic that can take months to unpack. And when I work with brands to define their story, we have several frameworks and exercises that we use and books that I ask them to read to better understand the components of a great story. So our discussion today really just scratches the surface of storytelling. We talked about major pitfalls that I see often. We talked about being too focused on the numbers and failing to speak to how we actually are helping our customers survive and thrive. The curse of knowledge gets the best of us when we assume that they're going to understand those numbers and the complex data and information that we want to tell them. And the importance of not making ourselves the hero of the story. Okay, this is what we covered today. We also talked about the value of clearly defining your why and your mission before you can actually craft your story. And your why impacts every decision that you make. It's not just about your marketing. It's about the decisions that you make and how you lead your teams and how you craft your marketing messages and iterate your products and grow your business and on and on and on. We also discussed an approach to your storytelling that can take you from complacency to success, defining your mission, deep diving on the problem that you're solving, looking at internal, external, philosophical problems. And we talked about crafting your story with empathy and understanding to elevate the real hero of your story, your customer, your investors, or your employees. And central to everything that we've talked about today is the idea that we're all human. Even in sales or marketing, we are all human. Cold calls. Oof, no one likes cold calls, but we're even human in cold calls or pitches, calls with investors, you name it. We are all human. At the end of the day, because we are human, we all make decisions based on emotional drivers that are then fortified by logic. We can't tap into that logic if our emotional side shuts off from receiving new information. And that's where storytelling comes into play. Storytelling breaks down those barriers so that your customer or your audience says, hey, they get me, they get what I need, they understand me, they can help me and my business thrive and survive. I want what they have. Now is an opportunity for you to rethink your marketing and your sales sheets and your pitch decks, your demo decks. If you don't, your growth will plateau. You'll continue to feel stuck. You'll continue to waste money. And it's going to be for a lot of things you don't need, whether it's marketing or materials or other resources. And if you take a storytelling approach, I promise you, you will see a difference. You will attract the right customers and you will attract the right investors and you'll attract the right talent. And what's more, if you take a storytelling approach, you'll convert those people and be able to keep them around. You'll make those top 10 lists, not because you're spending the most money on marketing, but because you used the right words that people connected to. So where do you go from here? Well, first, don't work in a bubble. Work with your team, work with an advisor or a consultant. This is what I help brands do, who can really help you break out of your own thinking. Define an impactful mission that communicates your why and inspires people to take action toward a better future. Use a storytelling framework that you know works. I use Donald Miller's because it's easy for first timers to understand, and it's incredibly impactful just to break it down with simplicity. But there's plenty of tools out there that you can use and work with someone through. I'll leave you guys with this. You have an idea. You have a business or a service that delivers value. But Nancy Duarte reminds us that this idea that we have to change the world stays with us if we can't communicate that idea in a way that resonates. Storytelling can help you change the world by getting your ideas to stick with people and move them to change the world with you. That is all for today. So thank you guys. I don't think we have any questions in the chat, but of course, welcome you guys to share those questions with us. Please do connect with me at Sierra Unger on really all of the channels, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. You can also connect with me at sierraunger.com if you'd like to explore this topic further, or all things strategy from business to marketing. But thank you guys for being here, and I hope that I've inspired you to tell your story.